He joins us on Fridays. He is the Culture Blaster, also the columnist for the Marina Times. He does the Coastal Commuter. He's also a writer and has been commenting and watching movies. I don't know the sheer amount of material that Michael Snyder goes through in terms of film, television, recordings, music. I mean, it's quite impressive. Mm-hmm. He is the Culture Blaster, and we visit with him on Fridays, and we bring him in with magic of the... Michael Snyder, welcome, sir.
Oh, my God.
Hey, Michael.
I love that. I love the harp. Live from my apartment on Russian Hill. So from the Royal Ground on Polk Street, it's me. Anyway, before we go any further, guys, I've got some exciting news. I just signed to co-author a new tell-all book, Mike Pence's Fly Unzipped. Audience includes entomologists, tailors, and sex researchers specializing in abstinence. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, wow.
I love it. Our
that's terrific.
Our boss popped into the studio, and he taped a fly to his head. He's just walking around work today with a fly taped to his head. It's really funny.
Hey, look, all kidding aside, the latest issue of the Marina Times is on the stands in San Francisco and available at marinatimes.com. And I have a piece on the front page that I'm very proud of. It's entitled When Politics Trump Family and Friendship. And the title alone should give you a rough idea of what it's about on the big picture front and the personal side. Plus, my reviews of Enola Holmes and Unfit, the psychology of Donald Trump as well.
Oh, wow. That's great. Yeah. But I love that you touch on this because you're right. A lot of families, and we kind of think we're past it, but we're never really past it. This politics has gotten hotter and hotter, and it's literally breaking up relationships. And I love that you're going to address it, and you do address it in your latest column.
It's something that's touching all of us, and I felt really compelled to write it. It was, it was a labor, but it was a labor about love,
Yeah. So what do you have for us to watch and to enjoy? Before you begin, let me just reemphasize that this David Attenborough, A Life on Our Planet, is a must-see. It is on Netflix, and I recommend it to everyone, and it doesn't matter. It's not a political movie. It's a beautiful movie. It states truths, but it states them in a way that I think is just is so very powerful. And there is an optimism, or at least a way out of the predicament that is presented. There's a way out that he spends the last 30 minutes of the film going through. So it's called, I think it's called David Attenborough, A Life on Our Planet.
Absolutely worth seeing. Probably more worth seeing than the movies I'm about to talk about. But I want to prep you all for this. It's Bad Comedy Day on the Mark Thompson Show. We've got a triple header here. Let's start with A Rainy Day in New York, which is the latest from Woody Allen, a filmmaker you might have heard of. And it sat in release limbo for a couple years, and you can see why. It should have stayed there. Stilted dialogue and plot. It's self-indulgent and kind of lazy. And worse, it's humor challenged and filled with these Allenisms that uncomfortably evoke his kind of, I'll say it, soiled public image. He's got hip young actors and a few veterans, and they're unconvincingly mouthing Allen's kind of now creaky pop culture references of yore. And listen to this. The lead character is a rich kid named Gatsby Wells, and he's played by, the boy of the moment, Timothy Chalamet. But every major male character in the cast, specifically Chalamet's feckless college boy on a weekend in New York with his girlfriend, Liev Schreiber's miserable art film director, and Jude Law's anxious, kind of nebbishy screenwriter are just pieces of Woody jumbled into this kind of rickety cinematic sculpture. At one point, Gatsby's brother tells a couple hoary Borscht Belt jokes that Allen probably heard or wrote when he was on the writing staff of Your Show of Shows in the 1950s. And the references to movies and music from bygone days, from virtually all the young people in the cast, not just from the vintage obsessed Gatsby character, they seem really false. And speaking of callbacks, Elle Fanning plays Gatsby's girlfriend and college classmate, who's a school newspaper journalist with an interview in Manhattan She's going to talk to Schreiber's director character, which is a reason the couple goes to New York. And it's like she's channeling Drew Barrymore. Much better seeing her play Catherine the Great on Hulu's The Great. There's lounge jazz versions of classical tunes from the Great American Songbook, lots of Earl Garner tracks. And there's a really nice version of Everything Happens to Me sung by Chalamet. But this is kind of a dreamy memory of the Manhattan of the olden days, Woody's old sweet spot. And now it seems flat and forced. And none of the kids seem real. It just kills me.
It was brutal. I happened to see this one too, Brett. I saw it a couple of years ago. You're right. It's been hit, and maybe it wasn't 2 years ago, but it was at least a year ago. Yeah. And it's awful. I don't even know that I finished it. It's absolutely awful.
You got like Diego Luna, Selena Gomez, Annalee Ashford. I mean, great casting, but let me say this is no Blue Jasmine, which was probably his best late period movie. A Rainy Day in New York is Petrified Woody. Anyway, you can see it on fan.
Oh, I get what he did. Did you get that? Because Petrified Wood. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Hubie Halloween.
I love it when the critics do that. Go ahead.
Hubie Halloween.
The only thing Woody about this is the dialogue. I love when you guys do that. All right, go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Hubie Halloween is on Netflix, and it's kind of a good-natured, predictable, and only occasionally funny holiday-targeted family comedy that kids are going to laugh at much more than their parents, unless their parents are rabid Adam Sandler fans. Sandler plays Hubie, who's a lifelong resident of Salem, Massachusetts, home of the colonial witch trials. And a stunted but kind-hearted man-child. Sound typical? It's in typical Sandler fashion. And Hubie works in a deli, but he lives to be a self-appointed safety officer during Salem's annual Halloween festivities. And he's abused by everyone in town but his widowed mother and the nice girl waitress who was his high school crush. And this Halloween, someone's actually making the locals disappear, and Hubie wants to get to the bottom of the mystery.
Oh.
Fueled by the local cops, his neighbors, and the local kids. Slapstick and juvenile quips abound. I mean, I didn't hate it as it went on, but you do have to suffer through an entire movie. I mean, that's an hour and a half of Sandler doing one of his annoying, mumbling, infantile voices. He never lets up. No joke. Look, I enjoy his serious work. I loved him in Uncut Gems. I thought he was a revelation in the Meyerowitz stories opposite Dustin Hoffman and Ben Stiller, and so on. And I even laughed at his comedies Billy Madison and The Waterboy, but the infantile Sandman in his own lowest common denominator vehicles is kind of like a non-starter at this point. You know what, though? I will say this. Like the Woody Allen movie, there's a cast of really interesting cameos, and they make the experience less excruciating. Julie Bowen plays the waitress, love interest. Ray Liotta is a disdainful neighbor. Kevin James is a sloth-like chief of police. Steve Buscemi is the oddball next door. And then you also get SNL vets, Rob Schneider, of course, Maya Rudolph, Tim Meadows, Kenan Thompson, and Melissa Villaseñor of the current cast. And Ben Stiller is actually in this, and Shaquille O'Neal. I just wish it was better. It's a family affair that should appeal to some families. But if I had a wife and kids and wanted them to watch a Halloween movie with me, it would feature the Mike Myers who wasn't on SNL. Let me just say that.
What's it called?
It's called Hubie Halloween, and it's on Netflix. And okay. We should just wrap really quickly with the third in my trilogy of horror, The War with Grandpa. Now, are you ready for the comedy stylings of Robert De Niro? I mean, he made you laugh with Meet the Parents and Meet the Fuckers and Meet the Irishman. No, the Irishman wasn't that funny. But, Analyze This was, and get ready to groan and cringe at slapstick-infused Grandpa here. This is a family comedy. The War with Grandpa features him as widowed, melancholy Grandpa Jack. He's invited to leave the home that he shared with his late wife and move in with his daughter, son-in-law, grandson, and granddaughter. The only problem is a lack of space in the house. So Grandpa is given grandson Peter's bedroom, relegating Peter to a drafty, vermin-filled attic, and this triggers a war between preteen Peter and geriatric grandpa.
Now, this could be funny, though. Just as you lay out the premise, I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, this could be funny. What happened? Why is it bad?
It's flat. It's just flat. The slapstick, it just isn't. Look, maybe you have a tolerance for this, like people have a tolerance for Sandler going, but I don't. I just don't. Look, you get Uma Thurman as Jack's daughter and Rob Riggle as his son-in-law. His best buddies are played by Christopher Walken and Cheech Marin. Dr. Quinn, medicine woman. Jane Seymour is Jack's possible love interest. The kid actors are the usual mix of annoying and shockingly precocious, but there's not much to work with here. And it's a little disheartening to see one of the great actors of his generation get banged around like one of the Three Stooges. That's just my issue here. But I am getting an idea. De Niro, Walken, and Marin, three old stooges. What do you think?
I hate it. You know what's something that has happened and been packaged through the last decade is the old, respected, even revered, I'll use that word, actors who end up in these comedies like I'm making these titles up, but you know what I'm talking about, like, Last Weekend in Vegas or
right.
Bucket List or whatever it is. You got Nicholson and
Space Cowboy.
Right. Well, Space Cowboy was like, where we got to get them out of retirement because there's only one crew that could do. Yeah, but the comedies particularly, and they just miss typically, don't they, Michael?
Yeah. No, I thoroughly agree. But look, guys, Bobby D gotta eat. They're giving him. It's funny.
So you're saying he did it for the money? Is what you're saying?
This is only movie theaters or drive-ins right now. Believe it or not, it's not even available on streaming. In the old days, good movies played in theaters, and the bad ones went direct to video. Wow, have things changed?
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh my God! Well, It's a Rainy Day in New York, which is the Woody Allen film. You wouldn't waste your time. Hubie Halloween, the Adam Sandler film, which you felt was like meh. There are a lot of moving parts, but you have to really love the Sandler character. And The War with Grandpa brings back that. I love the premise, but I guess it misses Robert De Niro. And of course, the documentary that we talked about, the Attenborough film that's on Netflix. And just because I mentioned that, Michael, and maybe you'll know this because someone texted on the text line 415-8088-10. They texted, hey, Mark, always love your show. If you haven't seen it yet, on Netflix, a must-see is The Octopus Teacher. It's a non-political and will lower your blood pressure. The Octopus Teacher. So,
wow. If I love octopus at the local sushi bar, but I don't know.
Oh, don't say that on this show. How dare you? Get rid of him. I don't like that.
Can you let him finish, sir?
No, I cannot let him finish. All right, Michael, thank you for joining us, and I say goodbye to you the way I said hello to you. Bye-bye, Michael Snyder. All right. Very, very well done.